back to StoryTime with Eric Zimmer. Where we last left off in the Mighty Dozen, James and Carly reconciled, not only with each other, but with the rest of the team. And they all came back from the hospital, so now they're all happy and reunited. But we still have one more chapter to do, and an epilogue. Since they're so short, I'll include both of them. So you ready? Alright, let's begin. Chapter 17, A Visit from Jack Gammelthorpe. Later that afternoon, James had everyone gathered in the living room for a special event. All of them, minus Eddie, Peter, and Clara, were wearing icon badges that came with their superhero outfits. These badges were the same colors as their outfits and had their initials on them. For example, James's icon was blue and gold, with the initials JMR, James Matthew Reiterman. What the others didn't know until now was that 3 more icon badges had magically appeared next to James's hospital bedside the night before he checked out of the hospital. Knowing whom they were for, James took them home with him, and it was precisely this reason why he called them all together. As James presented the badges to Eddie, Peter, and Clara, they beamed with joy. The others happily looked on. "Please kneel," said James, beaming. They did so. James put the icon badges on their shirts. "In gratitude for helping me, the leader of the Mighty Nine, and for saving my entire team, including myself, I hereby dub Edward Cecil McDowell, Peter Hugo Burkhardt, and Clara Miriam Burkhardt as new members of our superhero team. Henceforth, we shall now be known as the Mighty Dozen." Everybody cheered while Eddie, Peter, and Clara got to their feet and beamed at one another with pride. This was probably the happiest moment of their lives. "This calls for a celebration," said Richard. "Let's order barbecue." "Excellent idea," said Carly. As Carly went to the phone by the window to make an order, she saw another taxi pulling up to the house. "Jimmy, there's someone coming." James looked over to the window just as an old man stepped out of the taxi. There was something familiar about this man that made James's face light up with joy. Jack Gammelthorpe. Indeed, it was Jack Gammelthorpe, who was an actor and very wealthy producer in Hollywood. He was a very tall man of 70 with thick graying black hair and amber eyes, and he was wearing a colorful Hawaiian shirt and khaki pants. He looked very good for his age, and as the others were soon to find out, he was also a very good-natured man. When James opened the door, he held out his hand to shake Jack's, but Jack took it further by embracing James like a brother or an old friend as he laughed happily. The others were pretty surprised, as most of them either didn't know or didn't remember who this man was. The second to recognize him after James was Richard. "Jack?" he said, surprised. "Who is this laddie?" Reginald asked, confused. "Allow me to introduce myself for those who either don't know or remember me," said Jack, bowing politely. "My name is John Wolfgang Gammelthorpe III, but everybody calls me Jack." "I've heard of you," said Reginald. "You're Arthur's older brother?" "That's right," said Jack. "And you must be Reginald MacGyver." "Yes. Pleasure to finally meet you." "It is a pleasure indeed," said Eddie, coming up to Jack. Jack turned around. "Oh yes, I've heard about you 3 as well," he said, looking at the 3 kids. "You kids caused quite a stir at my brother's camp a few years ago. He told me all about it." Eddie, Peter, and Clara all blushed. Jack laughed. "You remind me of me and my brother when we were younger." He turned to the others. "I read all about your story in the paper and how you became superheroes and defeated General Henderson. I'm so proud of all of you." They went into the lounge and invited Jack to join them. He made himself comfortable in a large, squishy armchair. "And what brings you to Reno, Jack?" asked Carly. "And how's Melanie?" Christy asked. "Who's Melanie?" asked Peter. "Jack's wife," said Joey. "Oh, Melanie is good," said Jack. "She's been running things at the studio in my absence." "Is she always in charge when you're gone?" asked Frank. "Only if I'm out of town, but when we're both out, our friends Danny Tortellini and Freddie Lee Jackson run the studio. But Melanie's a very capable woman, and a lot better at bookkeeping than I ever was. And I should know, I've been married to her for 46 wonderful years. "Way to go, dude," said Gary. "Thank you," said Jack. "Now let's get down to business." "Yes, please." All eyes were eagerly upon Jack as he cleared his throat. "First off, I want to thank you for helping my brother and sister-in-law with their camp, not only as counselors, but for your reviews and recommendations about Pyramid Lake. It was my brother's favorite project, and he and Francis were always sending Melanie and I letters and pictures from the camp over the years." "Are you kidding?" Joey exclaimed. "That camp was the best! My cousins had a blast when they visited a few years back." The others laughed, highly amused. "Anyways," continued Jack, "I heard that you two, James and Catherine, are moving back to California in a few weeks." "Yes," said James and Carly, looking curious. "Well, just in time, too, because with the newly appointed General Roy Hicks, Reno, indeed the state of Nevada, is in good hands. Mayor Janet Goodman spoke very highly about both of you." Now what I mean by just in time is that Harold Sullivan, the chief detective at the Los Angeles Police Department, is planning to retire in a few years, and I think you two would be great detectives working in LA. And he said he's willing to take you two under his wing before he retires. "Thank you, sir," said James. "Yeah, thanks," said Carly. She turned to James. "This is great. Now we'll be able to work not only Burbank, but the entire area of LA. Jack nodded, and as for the rest of you, he turned to the others. "I know you're all either in school or busy with other things, but you are all willing to come out and live in California and maybe work as voice actors at my studio. Just a thought, of course, but the invitation will stand as long as I'm alive. If you want, Richard and Christiana, you can live with James and Carly during weekends while you're at UCLA. Oh, I almost forgot. James and Carly, you have a house ready for you in your hometown of Burbank, not too far away from your relatives. I took the liberty of getting it ready for you when you arrive." "Just out of curiosity," said James, "isn't that house you used to live in with your original film crew back in the 1930s? I'll tell all about this in a later story." "It is," said Jack, nodding, "but the house has been completely refurbished and has newer furniture and appliances. I admit it is quite a big house, but it has a pool, plenty of bedrooms, and you could use it as your superhero team headquarters, especially since there's enough room for all of you. So what do you think?" Everybody jumped to their feet and cheered loudly as if they were celebrating the new year. James shook Jack's hand as enthusiastically as Jack did before. "We'll do it. Thank you so much, Jack." "You're most welcome," said Jack sincerely. "Okay, everybody, settle down for a minute, please." Everybody settled down and looked at Jack, grinning with excitement. "Eddie, Peter, and Clara, I forgot to mention. I'm sorry about the loss of your respective parents, but I'm happy to say that if you come out to California, there are some potential families who would be willing to adopt you." Eddie, Peter, and Clara cheered. "Another thing," continued Jack, "Mayor Goodman mailed Melanie and I your superhero costumes, and by some strange occurrence, Eddie, Peter, and Clara now have their own. I don't know how to explain it, but some of my crew and actors have tried the outfits on for size. As it so happens, the superpowers are still there, just without the radioactivity. Also, you need to be wearing your superhero outfits for the powers to work. And James, don't worry about ripping your costume again. We'll be modifying the costumes so that they always stretch instead of ripping." "Excellent," said James. "I can't believe we actually have our own superhero outfit," said Clara. "Of course," said Jack. "After all, you are the mighty dozen, and I know the city of LA can always count on you." The cheers that followed went on for a while. Jack smiled proudly as he watched them all embrace each other like it was the greatest thing that ever happened to them. Finally, the epilogue. A number of things happened over the next few days. Joey and Pedro went back to Arizona and New Mexico respectively to finish their senior years of high school. Reginald resumed his studies at USC, as did Richard and Christy at UCLA. Frank rejoined his brother Donnie at their auto shop in Glendale. Gary went back to work at his family's diner in Long Beach. Eddie, Peter, and Clara were adopted by a foster family in San Marino, and James and Carly moved back to Burbank, happily reuniting with their families and high school friends. The house where James and Carly were moving into would not be ready for another week, but they were able to spend the week with James's Uncle Henry and Aunt Betty. When they got back home, a celebration was held that lasted all day. By nightfall, James and Carly went to bed, tired and happy. They lay in bed with their arms around one another and their heads drooping onto each other's. At one point, James woke up briefly and smiled lovingly at Carly, who stirred and gave him an equally loving smile. They nuzzled each other affectionately and happily went back to sleep. Unknown to them, two spirits appeared outside the window, looking happily at the young couple. They were actually the ghosts of James's parents, George and Vivian, who looked at James and at each other happily, proud of their son. The two embraced and faded into the night. James and Carly were as happy as can be. They had fixed their relationship, they were back in their hometown, they had new detective jobs, and most of all, they had their team and friends as unconditional support. As long as they had each other, there was nothing the two of them or their team couldn't do, for they were the Mighty Dozen. The end. Of course, that's just the end of part 1. I hope you all enjoyed it. There will not be I plan to make a few sequels, but you're gonna have to wait a while. Check out the book, link in the description below at Amazon.com. I will say this though I haven't written it just yet, I plan to do so this summer. I've got an idea laid out for the second Mighty Dozen story. But you will all have to wait a while. So until then, start this video over again if you want to hear the book again. If you want to read it online, find the book on Amazon.com. I hope you all enjoy it. Take care, and see you next time on Storytime with Eric Zimmer.